useful. So, let me introduce these two players. Spawning down in the bottom right position this time, we have got the blue Zerg player from Team StarCraft 2 Improve. It is Sabre. And his opponent, spawning up in the top left as the green Protoss, it is Weeze, who is getting a pylon down in his main base. And you know what that means? That means one little simple thing, that it's probably going to be a gateway expand. It could also potentially be a forge up in the main into a quick nexus. That's possible, but generally speaking, on Belshire, you see that, and you're expecting a gateway expand. And it's a lot to do with the fact that this ramp area outside the natural is actually pretty wide. And so going for a forge fast expand can be risky, especially up against some early aggression. And that's something which you never want to go out to. It's a best of one this round, so you want to make sure that you're playing safe. You don't lose to a simple mistake or something a little bit risky. You want to keep it all looking fairly swish and fairly chilled, because that's how you get comfortable. It's like the warm-up set. You don't want anything to go too crazy. Now, Sabre, he's going to go for a pull first, which is just the way you go up against Protoss, regardless of whether they're going Forge first, or Gateway first, or even a Nexus first. You just want to make sure you get that spawning pull down, just in case there's a Forge there, and just in case you're going to get cannon rushed. He should follow this up, though, with a relatively quick natural base, probably in the next, well, probably 30 seconds or so, ideally is when he'll be wanting to get that down. But up in the top left, we do just see that the gateway's down there. The second gas is on its way. 2 probes in 1. 2 probes going to probably get transferred into the second one, ready to start up the mothership core as soon as possible. But what does this mean for Sabre? Well, for Sabre, because the Nexus still hasn't been thrown down for the Protoss player yet, he doesn't need to rush his third. He doesn't need to get that 4 minutes 20 third base. He can just happily sit back and be like, okay, 2 bases, get a gas, get some Zergling speed out, and just make sure that you're not going to be taking any damage from really this aggression that could be coming down from this cybernetics core. Really common things you can see is things like just some 2 Stalker plus a mothership core aggression. That's really quite common, especially when the Zealot's been skipped, as it has been from Weeze this game. We've also got, of course, the probe coming down, so the Nexus can follow this up really quite easily. It's a safe build opening like this. And interestingly as well, the wall off has been taken, which is something that not every Protoss player chooses to do. Many just put the pylon and then the gateway as close to the middle line as possible to get a slightly better economical opening. But for Weeze, he's just making sure that he's not going to die to this aggression. These Zerglings coming over, there's only 4 of them, so they're just going to have a little peek. Meanwhile, Sabre transferring his queen down. He's got his second queen coming up in the main, and the gas already taken because the Overlord Scout knows that there isn't a natural base. And if you've got no natural, well, then you want to get the gas so you can start up speed. The mothership core is on its way out. Oh, a small supply block here for Weeze. Actually, not even a small supply block, quite a large supply block. Having to cancel that pylon as well because it was blocking the ramp. This is quite devastating now. This has been a good, 30-second supply block. This is actually really good news for Sabre because he's going to be able to drone very heavily. This sentry, the second sentry that's going to be coming out, is hugely delayed. That means it's going to have less energy banked up. It also means probe production has been cut, and that in itself can be really quite problematic going into the later stages. However, Sabre, he's got to make sure that he still does everything right. He's got a lot of Zerglings coming out and Zergling speed, so he's clearly expecting a bit of pressure, a little bit of pain coming down. You can see with this Overlord that, oh, he saw something get cancelled there, knows another pylon is on its way, but is this going to be a big enough giveaway for him? He's moving and he's taking an exact look. What is here? Well, 2 additional gateways, plus the 3rd gateway as part of the wall off to the main, means quite simply that there's going to be some 3-gate pressure potentially coming down. There's also probably going to be a key bit of tech somewhere because there is 6 gases up here, and if you've got the mothership core down at this time, you can know as a Zerg player that, yeah, there's going to be those 2 gases. So the gas has to be going somewhere. There's 2 sentries, yes, but there's probably quite a bit more. 400 has been banked up here by Weeze just due to the supply block he had to contend with. Now, the Zerglings that are making their way across the map at the moment for Sabre, they're not going to be able to do that much. This wall off is completely down. There's enough energy on the mothership core for a Photon overcharge, and there's a good number of force fields on these sentries. So I don't think he's going to be able to punch through right now, but it's going to give him map dominance while he secures up this third. Notice Sabre not even attempting to push in there. He just came up and saw, okay, I'm not going to make it through. I'll get my rotor on, I'll get my third, and I'll make sure that everything on my side of the map is going the way I want it, because I can't actually influence what's happening in your base. So this is all good play at the moment from Sabre, who is going to try and catch a sentry. Doesn't want to overcommit though, doesn't want to get trapped in by force fields. And if he'd gone into this area, well, then, of course, force fields could have come around the edge and could have blocked in the Zerglings. So, good play by him, being more cautious. There are a couple of proxy pylons coming down, though, and a big warp-in wave of sentries, interestingly. Very unusual to get this many sentries warping in with no support. So, the next wave should most likely be a couple of more offensive units. The Overlord, did it manage to see it? No, it did not quite. So incredibly close. Another probe coming down, an even closer proxy pylon. This third is gonna get attacked, but 3 roaches on the way, 8 Zerglings. The Zerglings aren't gonna be too effective, even though they have now spotted this because there's Zealots and those force fields able to zone them out, but the roaches are gonna be really important, and that's why we see Sabre with 4 in production at the moment. The sentry's starting to push forward. There's enough of them to completely wall off this third base so that no reinforcements can come in. But already the roaches making their way forward. Sabre dealing some nice damage. He's using that queen very effectively. He needs to focus the mothership core ideally to prevent a mass recall so he can pick up all of these sentries if this fight goes his way. But straight away, just starting to pick off the sentries as fast as humanly possible. And that's dealing quite a lot of damage, especially the gas really lost from losing those sentries can be absolutely huge. So Sabre going to be happy with this engagement so far. He hasn't lost anything too dramatic. Nice force fields there coming down from Weeze, preventing one of those roaches from escaping. The Zealots are still there. Another good force field. Not able to try to trap all of those drones, but a couple of them still behind. The aim of Weeze here is to take out this third, and if he's able to annihilate it, then that is where he can be on equal basis. His economy is okay. However, Sabre pumps in a whole ton of units, and therefore a mass recall has been forced by Weeze, and he's back to his base. So he was unable to take that down. He only managed to kill a single worker in that engagement, and overall, unfortunately, lost about 300 more resources than his opponent. But the pylons, that could be where the cost gets even greater. And Overlord just sacrificing himself in. We'll see the robotics facility and the forge researching and getting chrono boosted, which is a good little indicator of what your opponent's doing. The only thing that hasn't been spotted by Sabre so far is this Twilight Council. He does not know that that is coming down, and therefore, if he can't see it, then he can't prepare for things that could be coming out. But he's opting to get the Hydrodisc Den anyway. There's a single Zealot here getting taken out, but the Hydro Den, this is the really big thing, because this is going to allow Sabre to put on an immense amount of pressure, especially before there's any Colossi out. Yes, if Colossi were getting rushed, that is where Hydrodiscs aren't so great, because they're quite squishy, and the Colossi with a splash AoE from their thermal lances can very quickly take them out. But if there's no Colossus on the field, which, as we're seeing at the moment, not even a robotics bay yet, only just getting started now, you know very safely that Weeze is not going to be able to pump them out, and Sabre, with these Hydras, if he pumps a good number of them in the imminent future, will be able to deal so much damage. Weeze needs to identify this is coming. A bit more pressure on its way. Of course, we do see Sabre up at 60 drones to just 51 probes, so not a biggest lead as he may want, but that's because he's committing a lot to this aggression. Groove Spines coming down, roach speed also on its way. We've got +1 ground carapace because +1 missile attack is already done. Now, Sabre, just because he's getting Hydras and those Colossi out, doesn't mean it's the end of the road for him, because if he gets some Vipers, he'll be okay, but he may not even get that chance because the force fields are coming down, splitting this army in half. All of the Zerglings get taken out. A couple more roaches are getting completely cut out of the main army, and Sabre forced to retreat for the moment. He does notice have this Overseer with his army, just in case DTs are on the cards. But the chrono boosting is going down on the +2 ground weapons, the robotics bay, and also the robotics facility and that Colossus. So everything is coming together slowly for Weeze, who's also got his third now, just started up. But Sabre, macro hatch, third base up and running, all 6 gases are functional. Or actually one there not going yet. The Spire though, that's on its way, and the Spire is also really important because this is where we can see a switch into Mutalisks, and any Protoss player will know that if you suddenly get an unexpected flow of Mutas attacking into your main, it can be devastating, specifically when there's very little anti-air, and that's really all the Weeze's got in terms of anti-air defense is these 7 sentries. No stalkers at all, no Phoenix, anything like that, which means that he is susceptible to a big Mutalisk switch. But Sabre needs to make sure that there's no way Weeze can come out of this base and come and try and attack him until he's able to get out a decent-sized flock of these. So 10 Hydralisks are rallied across the map. They're heading straight towards them. The single Colossus isn't going to be a threat to the Hydras, but once 2, 3 come out, that's when they become slightly less effective, and where Sabre will have to be trying to think of a way in order to deal with those. Another thing that can come out of this Spire, of course, are Corruptors, ready to try and pick off the Colossus. That can work really nicely too, but does leave you slightly vulnerable if a Stargate comes down and a couple of Void Waves come out. But Sabre, he knows what his opponent's doing, he knows the tech path, so 5 Corruptors are on their way now. Is he going to be able to just punch through this? But he's going to try to. Notice he's very close to getting maxed out. He doesn't want to engage, ideally, until after the Corruptors are with the Force, because that is when he's going to be able to get a good engagement on these Colossus, and that's when he can use the Hydralisks before they get killed to annihilate the rest of this ground army. But here we see straight away some brave force fields coming down here from Weeze. He's able to trap a good chunk of Sabre's army. Really knocks that out for minimal, if any, losses at all. Also, great use of that Time Warp, preventing a lot of those units from being able to escape. But here we go now, another engagement on its way. The Hydras are just going to go for it. The Zerglings do get us around. One of the Colossi does fall, but with the Corruptors coming in, that second one isn't going to be sitting too pretty. And you can see a mass recall is being forced to use. The shield energy does go down, but they recall to the third base, which clearly Weeze wants to make sure that he does keep up. But Sabre, he is going to try and put on the pain. That Colossus is the prime target, and if it can get sniped down, which it can, this is where things start looking a little bit sketchy for the Protoss player. We can see Sabre now with a decent number of Roaches and Hydras is just going to have to chip away at this relatively small gateway force. He's 80 supply ahead of his opponent, and he is going to keep piling on this pressure. Behind this Sabre, he's just happily droning up after this next wave of reinforcements makes his way across. He knows that he's in quite a good spot. He knows without those Colossi there's nothing to deal with these Hydralisks. The Roaches are coming into act as a bit of a buffer to the Hydra's high DPS, but very low survivability. But the Immortal is still down. The Roaches, the Sabre, need to make sure that they are engaging at all times. The Corruptors adding a little bit of distraction in, but the Immortal is now getting focused down. Sabre's going in for the kill. There is a single Colossus behind. The Corruptors needs to get pulled back in order to deal with that, but for the moment, Sabre just focusing his attention on these Stalkers, but now the Corruptors are getting pulled across. This is where Sabre can really make the finishing blow. If he's able to knock out that Colossus, then of course there's very little less in order to defend. The third base, the Probes are getting pulled. A couple of Stalkers are there. A Probe managed to get a kill there on a Hydra, which is always good for Mr. Probe. But Weeze, he needs a bit of a miracle right now, because Sabre has got his fourth up and running. He's got his Hive Tech coming down and the 2-2 upgrades. The third base is still getting assaulted from every angle, and this now is a critical moment for Weeze. He's got to try and keep that up, but I don't think there's any way he's going to be able to. The Roach, one hero, Roach to the back there, does snipe it off, and now suddenly Weeze is on 2 bases to the 4 of Sabre. But when behind, thou must dark shrine is the saying, and we can see that Weeze is doing exactly that. If he can hold off, is there still detection with Sabre's army? No is the answer. His Overseer is miles away, but unfortunately there's too many units there, and therefore Weeze, GG's out, and being a best of 1 will go no further in this open.